Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. We got a bunch of great Steelers news and rumors to cover on today's program. First up, we're going to be talking about the four NFL draft prospects that the Pittsburgh Steelers hosted on top 30 visits earlier today. Then we'll talk about another quarterback target that the Steelers apparently pursued here that is now off the market. And we'll finish up today's show with Hard Knocks. Could the Steelers be on the HBO show once again here in 2025? Some new rules brought out from the National Football League certainly make it a possibility. Before we get into today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors, guys, make sure you guys share today's video on your social media if you'd be so kind. We really do appreciate all of your guys' support, and it's word-of-mouth referrals like that that help us grow our audience. All right, so if you want to help us grow, you want to help us get to 100,000 subscribers, that's our goal by the end of the 2025 NFL season. You guys can click the share button below this video, select the X icon or whatever social media that you guys have. You can tag me in the post if you're posting it on X at Jack_Sperry, and I'll make sure to interact with that post if you do so, and then you send it. So we really do appreciate each and every one of you guys that shares today's video. Only the real ones will share it, so make sure, if you want to make sure you are a real one, click that share button and send that out. Okay, so now let's talk about the four draft prospects here that visited the Pittsburgh Steelers facility today. Kaleb Johnson, the running back out of Iowa. Matthew Golden, the speedster wide receiver out of Texas, expected to go in round one. Azariah Thomas, the cornerback out of Florida State, the long physical corner with excellent tape. And then you got Gavin Bartholomew, which is a local visit, so it doesn't count against the top 30 draft visits because he is from the University of Pittsburgh, but he is a tight end. So you take a look at the top 30 visits for the Pittsburgh Steelers, at least to this point. Tyler Shuck and Jackson Dart are the two quarterbacks that have visited the Steelers that we know of at this point. Kaleb Johnson, DJ Giddens, Bashal Tootin, Dylan Sampson, Jaden Blue, and Ollie Gordon. 6 running backs have visited the Pittsburgh Steelers, so definitely seems like the Steelers are prioritizing that position this year. Matthew Golden, Jaden Higgins, Savion Williams, Jalen Noel are the 4 wide receivers that have gotten top 30 visits that we know of. And then on defense, you got J.J. Pegues out of Ole Miss, a defensive tackle. Yaha Black, another defensive tackle out of Iowa. Joshua Farmer and Elijah Roberts, also interior defenders. Then Azariah Thomas is the lone corner that has gotten a top 30 visit to this point. So I want to talk about 2 players specifically that visited the Steelers today. The first one being Matthew Golden out of Texas. Now, we'll talk about him in just a second here, but first, I want to tell you guys about the players that have had a combine formal meeting and a top 30 visit. There's only 6 players that the Steelers met with formally at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis this year, and also invited on a top 30 visit. Jackson Dart is the only quarterback. Kaleb Johnson, DJ Giddens, and Jaden Blue, also Ollie Gordon, 4 players at the running back position. So, like I said, Steelers are definitely doing their homework on this running back class. And then the only receiver to this point is Matthew Golden out of Texas. In fact, Matthew Golden is the only prospect in this entire class, at least so far, that has had a combine formal meeting, has had a top 30 visit, and had Steelers GM Omar Khan and Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin present at his pro day there in Austin at the University of Texas. So he is the only player at this point that could go in round one that has all 3 of those boxes checked. And listen, man, Golden is an awesome wide receiver prospect. He might end up being the first wide receiver taken. He ran a 4.29 40-yard dash time in Indianapolis at the Combine. That was the fastest among wide receivers. And he on tape, man, he's a great route runner. He can make great catches. He tracks the ball well down the field. He's going to be a really, really good player in this league, man. And, you know, he's going to be more of a true Z wide receiver. So if the Steelers take him, they're going to be slotting him in as kind of the route running type of threat at Z, while DK Metcalf is your true big body at X. But what I will say here, guys, is that if you draft Matthew Golden at number 21, that is if he makes it to you, I would say look out for a George Pickens trade. Probably at some time during day 2 of the NFL draft. My guess is they would like to recoup another day 2 draft pick, whether that be in round 2 or round 3. But if I'm being honest with you guys, if they're looking to trade George Pickens because of the acquisition cost of the team that is going to get him, because, I mean, let's face it, you know, it's been well reported, the punctuality issues, the fighting issues, the effort issues, the stuff with George Pickens, you know, that, you know, make him a little bit of a risk, along with the fact that you're going to have to pay him if you're a new team. I think that the Steelers would be lucky to get a 4th-round pick for him because of that acquisition cost, and it might be somewhere around a 5th or a 6th-round pick. And personally, there's no way in hell I'm trading George Pickens for that low of a price tag. And I think that at the end of the day here, I personally wouldn't take a wide receiver in round one. I would rather just go with DK Metcalf and George Pickens moving forward here, guys. I would not want to trade George Pickens because I don't think the pick that you're going to get back for him is going to be worth drafting a receiver in round one. I think Matthew Golden's a great player. I think he's going to make some team very, very happy, and the Steelers are definitely interested in him. They're showing a ton of interest in him right now. But personally, if I'm making the decision, I'm not taking a wide receiver in round one, and I'm keeping George Pickens. So now let's shift our focus here to Kaleb Johnson, the running back out of Iowa. And I would say right now, guys, don't be surprised if Pittsburgh trades down in round one, somewhere towards the end of round one, and then ends up taking Kaleb Johnson with their selection again towards the end of the first round of the 2025 NFL Draft. And the reason for that, guys, is I think he is a perfect fit for what Arthur Smith wants in his number one running back here in Pittsburgh. He's got great size. He's 6'1", 224 pounds. He's got pretty darn good long speed. Like on film, he is running away from people, which is something you really like to see, especially when he's he's putting his foot in the ground and he picks the right lane. And the thing about Kaleb, guys, is that he picks the right lane to run through very consistently. Great vision, really good play strength because he's a bigger back with good speed. He is very difficult to bring down when he gets past the initial line to gain. And then also ball security. 0 fumbles for him at Iowa last year. That is something that Mike Tomlin, I think specifically, is going to particularly cherish. We know how much Mike Tomlin values the football. He likes quarterbacks that don't throw interceptions, and he likes running backs that don't fumble the football, and for good reason. He wants to win the turnover battle consistently. Kaleb Johnson's a back that you can do that with. Some of the cons on his profile, though, is that he is scheme dependent, but the thing is, that's a good thing for the Pittsburgh Steelers because the scheme that they run, the outside zone type of stuff, is what Kaleb Johnson needs to thrive at the next level, and I think that he is a perfect fit for what Arthur Smith wants to do. He wants to run a lot of wide zone, outside zone, that type of thing, and Johnson, to me, his best scheme fit is that kind of, put your foot in the ground, one cut, and run forward type of offense. And I think that he can be a true star in this league, in this style of offense. And he can be that bigger type of back that wears down an opposing defense, whereas Jaylen Warren can be that lightning kind of scat back almost, where he's the change-up and he's more of the shiftier back, the third down back, the receiving back, and Johnson can be your every down type of player. I think he's a perfect fit for what Pittsburgh is looking in their number one running back, and I would not count out the Steelers trading down and then taking Johnson at the tail end of round one just because he is such a perfect fit at the position, along with the fact that this team really needs a number one running back at this point in time. But I will also say running back is absolutely still a possibility in the middle round, specifically round 3 and round 4. You look at some of the other guys that they're talking to, Bashal Tootin, Jaden Blue, Ollie Gordon, a lot of these other running backs that are going to go in the middle rounds. So it's certainly possible that the Steelers go defensive tackle or corner or even quarterback maybe if they don't get Aaron Rodgers in the first round, and then they opt to go running back in either round 3 or round 4. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Would you be happy with a trade down and then taking Kaleb Johnson at the end of round 1 to be this team's next number one running back? Type H if you would be happy with that, or type U if you would be unhappy with that result. Give me an answer down there for today's pinned comment. YouTube's going to throw an ad break here in just a second, and also I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Fanatics. And while I'm talking about Fanatics today, let me know your answer to this question for today's pinned question. All right, now let's talk about Fanatics here, guys, where you guys can get the officially licensed Pittsburgh Steelers draft hat for the 2025 NFL Draft from our friends at Fanatics. When you go to chatsports.com/pit25 to get the official 2025 draft hat today, you got that gold brim with the leafing on there, the classic black and gold. I really like the simple design that they have for this year's draft. And then you also have this really nice off-white color type of design that you have, kind of old school looking, and then you got the gold leafing on the black brim. I think you can't go wrong with either one of these designs, but this one right here, the black one, is the one that you're going to see the draft picks this year wear on draft day. So go to chatsports.com/pit25 to get yourself a brand new NFL draft hat for the Pittsburgh Steelers today. So another quarterback that the Steelers could have potentially pursued is now off the board here, and the New England Patriots have traded Joe Milton to the Dallas Cowboys earlier today, and here was the compensation. It was Joe Milton in the 7th-round pick number 217 this year's NFL Draft, in exchange for a 5th-round pick, number 171st overall. So, of course, the Dallas Cowboys land Joe Milton, but then Jordan Schultz from Fox Sports reported that the Steelers were actually in on potentially trading for Joe Milton. Other teams that were interested were the Las Vegas Raiders, Philadelphia Eagles, New York Giants, and then, of course, the Dallas Cowboys, who ended up landing the former Tennessee Volunteer. Now, I do believe that Pittsburgh was in on Milton as kind of like a dart throw. Like, they probably offered somewhere around where the Cowboys offered a 5th or a 6th-round pick, and if that would have been the case, they would have still been in on Aaron Rodgers. They would have still would have liked to sign him, and kind of the ideal quarterback room would have been Aaron Rodgers, Mason Rudolph, and then Joe Milton as kind of a potential long-term type of dart throw, and then they probably just wouldn't have taken a quarterback in the NFL Draft. So, like, he essentially would have just been their draft pick at the quarterback position if they would have traded for him this year. He wouldn't have been traded. He wouldn't have been the presumptive starter or anything like that. But I can certainly see why the Steelers were interested in him. I would have loved that trade because he's somebody with a bazooka of an arm. He's a big guy. He can run around at his size. He's got some really great arm talent, and he showed some big-time steps in development last year with the New England Patriots in his mental processing, in his pocket presence, in his accuracy. He made some big-time steps last year in New England, and now the Dallas Cowboys are going to be hoping he can take a couple more steps here as their new backup quarterback. And they did something similar last year. They traded for Trey Lance last year, another big armed quarterback, that's got some athleticism. Joe Milton will be kind of slotting into that spot in Brian Schottenheimer's offense behind Dak Prescott, of course, who has been injury-prone as of late. But it does sound like Milton wanted to go to Dallas, and apparently, according to Schultz's reporting, the Patriots actually took a lesser deal. They had a better deal on the table with a different team, but Milton wanted to go to the Dallas Cowboys because his family was big-time Dallas Cowboys fans. So it's kind of a dream come true for him. So good for Joe. Wish him the best of luck in Dallas, but would have loved to see him here in Pittsburgh as a developmental long-term quarterback project. But what I think this says about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Steelers willing to trade a day 3 draft pick for Milton, I think tells me that they would be willing to do the same for another guy that they like the upside for, somebody that's physically gifted, somebody with a big arm, somebody that does have high theoretical upside that could be got for a day 3 draft pick in a trade. A couple names to watch out for, in my opinion, are Will Levis and Malik Willis. Both these guys were day 2 draft picks, not day 1 draft picks. Both these guys have started games in the National Football League. Willis actually looked pretty decent with the Green Bay Packers in his time last year, and then Will Levis, he was behind some of the worst offensive line play in the NFL in his time as the starting quarterback of the Tennessee Titans. And, I think that I'm intrigued by Will Levis, especially for the right price tag, because he's still on his rookie contract, so he's not costing you much. And because he's not a first-round pick, it's not an expensive rookie contract either. And, he's got a very similar throwing style to Aaron Rodgers. So if you do bring in Rodgers and you're looking for somebody for him to kind of mentor, I think that Levis would be a very moldable type of player that could be your third-string quarterback for now, but under the tutelage of an Aaron Rodgers could potentially blossom into your franchise quarterback. He's got good size, good athleticism, really great arm talent, needs to work on the accuracy, the mental processing, and the pocket presence, but I'd be willing to give up a 6th-round pick for him. What quarterback in round 6 are you going to get that has as much upside as Will Levis? I just don't think you're going to do that, and I think that when you look at the value of the 6th-round pick, I'm not sure if any player that you take in round 6 is going to potentially give you as much as Will Levis did. Plus, the Steelers gave up their 6th-round pick last year for a developmental guy in Justin Fields, and I certainly think they would be open to the possibility of doing that again, especially if they think Levis can develop under Aaron Rodgers as his mentor. So what do you guys think? Let me know down there in the comments section. If the price tag is a 6th-round pick, would you trade for Will Levis to be kind of the developmental quarterback option for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Give me an A for accept or D for decline. Let me know what you guys are thinking down there in the comments section. So the last topic on today's show is that HBO and the NFL have changed their rules for preseason Hard Knocks in terms of the teams that are allowed to refuse to be on the show. And, I think that, the main thing here is that the playoff exception has been lifted. Before, if you had made the playoffs and either of the previous 2 seasons, you could refuse to go on the show. All right, but now that exemption has been lifted, so now playoff teams are now eligible to be on the preseason version of HBO's Hard Knocks. So the 3 things now and the 3 rules for being able to refuse to go on the show. It's either A, you have to have a first-year head coach. 2, you are being featured on the in-season version of the show, so they're going to be doing the division version of the in-season Hard Knocks like they did last year, which, of course, featured the Steelers. But, of course, that's not going to be happening this year, so that does not apply to Pittsburgh this year. And then the final way is that you've been on the preseason version of Hard Knocks the last 8 years, so that dates back to 2017. Of course, the Steelers do not meet any of these criteria, so now the Steelers can now be forced to be on Hard Knocks by the National Football League this year. That is if the NFL and HBO decide they want to feature the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, Mike Tomlin was the star of the show last year, and Aaron Rodgers was the star of the show when he was featured on the New York Jets Hard Knocks preseason version a couple years ago. And if Rodgers signs here, I think there's a pretty damn good chance that HBO is going to want to cover the Pittsburgh Steelers. With Mike Tomlin and his personality going to Latrobe with Aaron Rodgers coming in to try and save his career. The storylines are just oozing off of the Pittsburgh Steelers. That is, if Rodgers decides to come to the Steel City. So I think if that ends up happening, and I do think Rodgers will eventually sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I do think HBO will probably decide to feature the Steelers in Latrobe this year. So sound off for me down there in the comment section. Would you like to see Hard Knocks feature the Pittsburgh Steelers for the 2nd year in a row, this time in the preseason? Do you want to see Hard Knocks in Latrobe? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. There's parts of me as a fan that wants that inside look to Mike Tomlin's training camp and all that great stuff, but there's also a part of me that says I don't want any more distractions than what Aaron Rodgers is already bringing to the table. So I have mixed feelings about it, guys. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section, and that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors, brought to you by Chat Sports. I appreciate all of your guys' support. Click that subscribe button for more extensive Steelers coverage every single day on this channel, 100% free.